Welcome to the Stress-Free Dentist podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon, and check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches, or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. Welcome back to another episode. I'm joined by a recurring guest, Dr. Kianor Shah. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Block.
And I wanted to thank you also for you contributed to one of my books, Stress-Free Dental Implants, which is up there in my library. That was a pleasure doing that with you. That was a few years ago. And man, you are a practicing dentist. You're up to a lot. I love what you're up to. I just first wanted to get your story of first, how did you even decide to become a dentist?
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, first of all. This goes back ways to the college years. One of my best friends I used to study with, I wanted to be a cardiac surgeon, and he wanted to be a dentist. He used to go to the library and argue which lifestyle will be better down the road. And here we are. I ended up going, after he got accepted to dental school, I ended up following him. And slowly applied to one dental school and got accepted and started.
And where'd you go to dental school?
Southern Illinois University School of Dental Medicine.
And after dental school, did you do a residency? Did you do a specialty? Did you go right into private practice? Did you associate? What was your story there?
I went into private practice and took my bought a practice within 6 months out of school. I believe we doubled or tripled their revenue in that office. And bought a second practice and doubled the revenue there, and then built 4 more practices. And then I got out of those practices, went back to school, got an MBA, did a couple of fellowships for implants, and gained the ICUI diplomate status and all of those things over the years. So it's been quite a run.
And you're in, is it Palm Springs?
Yeah, Palm Desert, California. It's sort of like a suburb of Palm Springs, if you will.
And I just wanted to go back. So 6 months after school, is that where you bought your first practice? Was it in that area?
Yes. In Illinois, pretty close to school.
And how did you said you doubled the revenue. How did you do that so quickly?
Well, when you get out of school and you're under tremendous financial distress, and now you have a license, and now you have the opportunity to generate revenue, I was working 6 days a week. And at that time, I thought working harder versus working smarter was the thing to do. But then at the same time, they gave me quite a bit of liquidity to do things I wanted to at the time, very early on.
And from there, you said you made that jump from 1 to 2 dental practices. What was that like, going from 1 to 2?
1 to 2 is very easy. You have a practice in your primary market, and then you want to draw patients from a secondary market close by. You can travel to it, you can monitor it. You're physically there. After 2, it gets a bit rocky, especially if there's distance, and you have to rely on others to perform certain operational tasks, as well as your clinical expertise. See, nobody's ever going to care as much as you care. So the first 2 were booming. and then the subsequent four became very challenging. And I, over past 20 years of having practiced, having participated in over 30 build outs, having worked with probably 2 dozen of leading organizations in dentistry, I reached the conclusion that you don't need an empire to have a good life. All you need is one practice, really, and focus your entire energy in that practice and take care of your patients. I make more money out of one practice now than when I had six.
That's been my formula. I got one wife, two kids, one dog, and one practice, and one ping pong table. And that's been my formula. I don't think I could handle anything more than that. Um, but I feel like a lot of dentists, they compare themselves to others. Their friends are opening up a second office, a third office. They hear about these multi-practice situations, and they're selling to DSOs. And I'm personally glad I never jumped into that, because I've heard just so many issues and stresses from that.
Wow, where do I even start? I'm a big proponent of private practice, transitioning between a senior doctor and a younger generation doctor. I'm very strongly against the entire DSO concept as a whole. DSOs came with the contention of increasing access to care and reducing administrative burdens. That's how they sold the entire legislature, the government, the boards, the schools, which was not what they were actually doing, what they're actually doing now. And our colleagues look at it and say, "Oh, he made millions and millions of dollars by owning so many practices and turning it into a private equity ordeal and a marketing function." Dentistry is more than that. You cannot separate the business side from the clinical side. I would wager that it's impossible. If people are want to make everyone happy, maybe they should be in the ice cream business, not in the healthcare business. The decisions that you make clinically, they trickle down chairside, from your material selection to your staff selection to the way you like to practice. That's not the same thing as some office manager hired by corporate telling you to go into this room, do two crowns, and go into this room and do this two fillings. It's completely the entire concept of autonomy and benevolence and beneficence are all just go right down the trash. And they come in, they take your equity, they take your ability to really, really make a career out of it. You work for a percentage of revenues that are collected. They set daily limits, which I believe is highly unethical. You have to produce X amount of money today, and we got a little bit of a carrot for you here and a bonus. This is all just completely flipped upside down with what we learned in dental school and what I went to the profession for. So I highly recommend, and it's not all that rosy. The DSOs are in big trouble. Private equity is drying up. If you were in a pyramid or a Ponzi scheme situation, eventually the money runs out. I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying that they should never own any equity in a healthcare setting. And they should never control anything in a healthcare setting. They should be working for a fee for service, a la carte. Here are the services we provide. This is what you pay us. Not, hey, you're going to take over all the assets, dump the charts on you, and the liability on you, and we're just going to sit back and profit. So I have a lot of opinions about the DSO. And given AI now, I think the DSO model will be obsolete. A, they don't increase access to care. Clinicians do. B, they provide office back support. AI can do everything they do for pennies on the dollar. Everything. There's nothing that the DSO can do that AI can't now. So we're changing back to an operator model. And I believe that no matter what they integrate, and they're so big, some of them have 500 offices. Even if they wanted to change the technology, it could cost them billions of dollars. So they don't have it. They can't do it. So they're going to struggle to compete with the doctors that are implementing AI in their practices. And I would anticipate to see a lot of that happening, a lot more DSOs going belly up. And that's a signal to the private equity market.
And so just to confirm, when you had your six offices, you were still privately owned. It was you. the dentist that owned uh, six offices. My personal interpretation of a DSO is that there's private equity money involved. And but in your situation, you were in full control. If you wanted to add, AI X-ray diagnosis, you could. You were in charge of hiring the staff, the supplies, your fees. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's where I actually gained a lot of knowledge about how these things are happening in the corporate world. Yes, I own them 100% myself. I have no objection of a clinician that's licensed that can take and handle more practices to own more practices. What I have a problem with is these private special interests coming in, setting up management operations in different states and then paying essentially, for lack of better term, bribing doctors to put their name on the practice in exchange for a fee, and so it looks legal, and then coming in with all of their private equity nonsense and interfering, frankly, with the patient-doctor relationship in every form. Those are two separate matters. If you go to school for 20 years, you should have the right to own multiple business if you wanted to. But what you don't have the right to is coming in without a license as an entity, without being a doctor, having that Hippocratic oath in the back of your mind and start making business decisions in the dental office. So two big different things to distinct, but it's very hard to actually absorb that for the public. They're like, oh yeah, this is capitalism, this that. But at the end of the day, if you really deep dive into it, the DSO should not even exist in the way it is existing in the marketplace today.
And then, so after you actually sold your offices and you went back to school to get your MBA. Tell me about that decision.
I was moonlighting when we moved from Illinois to California, and I practiced in more than, I don't know, 300 offices probably. Just going from doctor to doctor, doing all their endo, doing all their impacted wisdoms, things of that sort. And I would get to talk to them and get to know them a little bit and learn about their challenges. And it used to be the same pattern, insurance, third parties interference, regulations, just all of these people that have gained a lot of power in the last 50 years. They didn't even exist or for thousands of years. It was just the patient, the doctor, and the tools and technology that was living around from, the stones and rocks to AI today. Now I'm observing all of that, and I'm trying to figure out what is the solution for this. So MBA, I was taking it to improve my business skills, which I thought was one of the greatest moves I made in my career. Because they don't teach you anything by default. These schools, they just throw you out in the lion's den, and you get out and you have to figure all this stuff for yourself. That's a flaw in our entire educational system that these third parties likely endorse, lobby for, and benefit from. An MBA, business education was very important. At nighttime, I would do my MBA. During the day, I would moonlight. So I learned a lot from my colleagues about what they want and what their main complaints are. Insurance being hands down number one, but these third party interferences and financial interests aren't too far behind.
Yeah, it sounds like, you went out there, you built some practices, you sold it, but then you dove back into education, you got your MBA, you did a bunch of fellowships. But now you have another practice. Tell me about the practice that you have now.
So in order for to be a winner, to all my younger colleagues, newer generation, is you cannot succeed if you don't fail. I mean, you can succeed and you don't appreciate it as much also. I've accumulated everything I've learned into doing something that was better. I have a practice in Palm Desert, California, on El Paseo. Location, location, location. It's like the Rodeo Drive out here. And I'm the only dentist out there. And I have 5-star reviews on all platforms. I generate more money than I did in those 6 offices. I take more home. My patients are happy. I'm happier. I have a balanced life. I only practice 3 days a week. I have other practitioners in my office. I have specialists that come through from time to time. for endo, for oral surgery, for things of that sort that I don't want to do anymore. I used to do 100% of the endo. I used to do all of the oral surgery. I do less now. And we have a GP partner. It built in a very short amount of time. Instead of going and out and taking a $500,000 loan, I did it for a fifth of that. When I started 10 years ago in this practice, and just gradually build it every year at about a rate of 30% increase. And we went from nothing to being a multi-million dollar practice. And you can do the same. You don't need to join the DSOs. You need to have this kind of a situation. You need to take advice from senior colleagues that have made mistakes, so you don't make the same mistakes. B, go out, and if you're scared to set up your own practice, which I understand, affiliate with a senior doctor, private practice. Learn the bad and good from them. You don't have to absorb everything, and use that as your stepping stone to have your own practice. C, go out and find a good location. Do your studies meanwhile. Take a year, two, whatever it is. Find the right location. Don't go into a skyscraper where you have to tremendously spend on marketing and get patients up the stairs. Go into high foot traffic areas, mall type settings, and find yourself a location that you believe to have good exposure to the public, be either to foot traffic or driving traffic, and then set up your own practice slowly. Don't give up your day job. Start with 1 day, start with 2 days. Just make sure you can manage the rent payments, and then I did it with 100 grand. I kid you not. I made an agreement with the CT company to install a CT in my practice, and I would start paying X amount of months in. Once I started generating revenue, I only started with 2 chairs instead of buying 5 chairs without having the model verified, and gradually start building. Because once you own your practice, you own equity. That's your retirement. You own. Nobody's stealing your equity away. You can work as much as you want. You can work less than you want, and you can actually have some self-respect and autonomy over and decide your future. Determine your desires, your future. You want to get married. You want to have all of these things with the debt you're in. You will be in full control. And that's my recommended path for our colleagues. Don't buy into cheap marketing claims that never materialize. In these settings where finances and private equity play, you're just a number. I heard some company generated over $1 billion, and all of the doctors combined had less than 10% of that. So you can just imagine they're bringing and making someone else's dream come true versus yours. So I'm a big proponent of going back to the private equity, private practice model, with the licensed doctor being in charge of all the decisions being made in the practice, without exception, really.
Yeah, and I feel very similar about, you had 6 practices, you were doing all these procedures that maybe you didn't like doing. I personally, I went fully out of network 2 years ago. I have one practice and I don't do procedures that I don't feel comfortable doing anymore. And I'm growing. And I, as a privately owned practice, I can make all the decisions. I can have a party for the staff if I want to. I can buy a 3D printer. We have same day crowns. I have a laser. I love all that stuff. What about yourself? What kind of technology do you enjoy in your practice?
Um, well, I'm big into aesthetics of the practice itself and the technology. That's another differentiator between myself and others in the local community. I open on Saturdays. I take off on Mondays. The opposite of what everyone else is doing in the area. So, for me, we just have all the latest technologies, really. We play a lot with our CT and scanner and our laser and all of those things, intraoral this, intraoral that, and really increases a acceptance by my patients. And I have AI integrated also into the management software. So I have a secondary verification of my diagnosis, or at least I can have disagreements with AI, but we have that tool. When intraoral camera came out, that was a big deal with case acceptance. Now this is even a bigger deal because on top of that, it gets created into an opinion based on what the common standard of care is. So patients are sitting there and they're like, "Wow, this is great." Reduces any kind of confusion, creates additional documentation, and really helps my patients with case acceptance. So we are high on tech. If I can find, right now I'm working on something mind-boggling that I suppose I can give you a little taste. Integrating a holographic concept into the management software so the front desk can focus more on patient customer service versus of dealing with insurance and all of those other things, all done by a holographic concept that can also answer patient questions. So, working on technology myself in that regard, and also if I see new technologies come out, I'm always keeping my eyes open for robotics, things that could impress patients. Um, so yeah, I'm all tech. I invest a lot of the funds that we generate every year into improving the practice. That's a pillar around here.
I am the same way, and I think it's great for, the patients, the business, but it's great for me. I love it re-energizes me. When I added AI X-ray diagnosis, it made me give me a spark. When I added same-day crowns, when I added sleep apnea, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're stuck on that hamster wheel, you're going to burn out. And when you add new technologies like this, it's so awesome, and patients will sense it. Those I'm at a network, so I need to impress my patients and make them understand that they're in the best place with the best technologies, and we spare no expense. So I totally agree. And to piggyback on your mention about the X-ray diagnosis is, I'm now pretty comfortable reading X-rays. When I first got out of school, I was a hot mess, and reading an FMX was one of the most stressful things I did. So now, it helps you. It's a great second opinion, but it's great for patient education. I'll show the X-ray and I'll say, Judy, there's a big red area there. That's bad. We need to fix that. Or, you see these numbers. There's periodontal issues. We need to talk about your perio. And that transcends language. It transcends experience. It transcends the dentist's ability to communicate. It just makes my life easier.
It's exactly what it is. And, a lot of these third parties have created distrust between us and them because they came in, smelled a bunch of profit and money, and then the game started becoming market, market, market. And instead of, hey, take care of your patients first, try to figure out the best way how to empty your patients' pockets. And that's where the industry has led. I think AI can fix that because we're getting truthful answers. And then the patients don't sit there and think, oh, dentists are a bunch of crooks trying to empty my pocket. You can start rehealing the profession slowly by saying, hey, ma'am, here are the photos. You see what I see. Here's the standard of care. Here's the AI saying the same thing on top of what I just shown you in the picture. So patients are now going to be more reluctant about saying, hey, I need a second opinion and I'm going to go out of the practice. And the next dentist says something else to them because they all do often. There's a lot of discrepancy between how dentists diagnose. We do have standards of care, but still, that's a big flaw in our profession, and that creates reputational problems for us. I think that's going to go down with less and less, and there's going to be more and more talk on the street about, hey, this doctor has all of this technology, and we don't believe that this doctor is over diagnosing or trying to do something unethical. So, and I think the standards will become a lot more defined. What is a cavity? Is it just a stick with your Explorer, or is there more to it? Is there breakages and enamel? Is there AI that can verify those things? Is it just staining? All of those things that we have dealt with over the years, I think, are going to start becoming more addressed with artificial intelligence and lack of influence of third parties. So, as a bright future ahead with AI, not so much with the third parties.
And it's also great for temp hygienists. I know it's a major issue with temporary staff coming in, so it really helps, with temporary staff that come in and may not be, they're not invested in your practice like, your regular staff. But you mentioned robotics. Can you explain more about robotics in dentistry?
Um, Robotics, I don't expect that to become a major point of contention in the next 2 years regarding what AI can and cannot do. But I'm starting to see models where AI is integrating with robotics in a way that a robot can prep your teeth in like 15 minutes. I think it's Perceptive that's doing that. There's another company that particular robot can actually hold your jaw stable, prep the teeth, do fillings, do minor restorative work in a matter of minutes with accuracy that's mind-boggling. Then you have scenarios where there are robots now that can prep the veneers, create the veneers before you even start prepping. So with the same technology, accommodating for facial movements and head movements, which is wild stuff. Medicine has taken a tremendous hit now. You have hospitals in China, for example, that there's actually one particular hospital that has zero staff members in it. You go in as a patient, it's like the Walmart self-checkout. Very, very disconcerting, for things that don't have manual dexterity involved. You're looking at immediate effect to them. But for us, it's a little bit more complex. I think humans are always going to want to have a human element in a dental setting. So I wouldn't be too worried about robots, at least not for the next decade. I don't think robots are going to be sitting there in dental work. But is it impossible? No. I mean, they're coming. They're all coming. The innovations are coming. They're all wanting to see how they can eliminate us. But we're not going to let that happen, Eric, right?
Yeah, not in, I don't see that happening, and for sure, not my career, but
Yes.
there's always that with dentistry that you need that human relationship, and it's what makes dentistry special. And like, look, where else can you play with these awesome tools like than having a dental office? But I know you can't get too much into it. Can you mention that the holographic thing you were talking about? Can you just give me a quick? I'm just trying to picture what that looks like.
I wish I could discuss that on this because it's the first one out there that exists in the public forum. I don't know if I want, but soon keep an eye on the things that I'm doing. I just engaged in a contract with a space company. There are details being discussed about creating this product that my contention is when you have five girls up front that are calling insurance, dealing with this, dealing with that, you really lose touch with the purpose of them being there as customer service. I would want the phone calls being answered by this concept. I would want a lot of the stuff done that is administrative and repetitive. So the actual front desk can be limited to one person that is focused on customer care only. Hi, Miss Jones. Welcome to our practice. Can I offer you something to drink? Would you like this magazine? Would you like that? Whatever it is, check them in, seat them in, and the holographic concept can do a lot of that as well, at least in the check-in side. But I think that would be a lot better of a model than what we have with a bunch of people on the phone. Everybody's struggling. The whole format falls apart when somebody calls in sick. And those things will start becoming nuisances that won't exist anymore, I think, with what I'm trying to do. But yeah, just imagine showing up to an office with your ID, putting your ID up, and the other side of the scenario will know everything about you in the system, in your management system also, and would be able to answer any questions you have in a human format. Um, yes.
Love it, dude. Just keep me posted on that. That sounds amazing. And tell me about the Top 100 Doc. What about that organization?
I'm the founder of the Global Summits Institute. What started as a very small operation and an idea has turned into a global endeavor now involving over 160 countries. The contention at the time was to create an organization where there's exclusive collaboration between doctors, devoid of third-party influence. We do not have anyone that's not a doctor. We have one technology guy in our organization. The rest are all doctors from all these countries. They're well-positioned innovators, educators, important figures in the supply chain, in the political arena, in the academic arena, in the administrative arena and the entire supply chain, really. So The idea was to maximize collaboration, administrative, financial, and academic sense as a three-pronged approach. And that has developed over the years into a full blown force. We do a World Gala every 2 years where we bring in these doctors to Italy, of an island of Italy in Sardinia, where we discuss all of our ongoing improvements. The idea is to keep these third parties out of the healthcare industry and maintain the patient-doctor relationship. I invite you to look at our doctrines. We live and breathe those doctrines. That's on top100doc.com. For anyone who wants to join this movement that has similar minded to us, we have doctors, dentists, chiropractors, pharmacists, optometrists, and more in the mix of the 1,100 current high-profile individuals. These are the movers and shakers of industry. I believe you were in a past class yourself, Eric. Podcasters, and we don't compromise for nothing. We don't take sponsorships for any of the projects unless it's a physical conference we're doing, they want to exhibit or something. We haven't assumed monies from anyone. We don't charge the top 100 doctors to be part of it. You can't buy it. You have to be nominated. You have to go in front of the committee, and you have to be ratified. So, these third parties get really big in the US and Europe in the last 50 years. We're going to sort of, you need a global effort to bring the truth to the forefront of the discussion and make sure that they don't destroy our entire industry. So yeah, that's what Top 100 Doc is about.
And so you mentioned that where people can find out. I want to end up with two final questions. Is there any way else to find out more about what you're up to or get a hold of you? You can leave an email, a website, a phone number, whatever you want to leave. And then the final question, although you've given, a ton of gems already, but what final advice would you give to the young dentists out there?
Well, as to your first question, kianor.shah@gmail.com, kianor.shah@gmail.com. As to your second question, be wise, sit down and evaluate all the factors. You've been trained all of your career to solve problems, and you're going to spend the rest of your life getting up from morning to night, and you will be solving problems. That's what you'll be doing, critical thinking. Look at the entire spectrum of things. You are not in a good financial position. You just got out of school. You likely have debt. You're looking at buying a practice that would double your debt possibly, and you're being given all of these options. If the options are too good to be true, they probably are not good. Don't be afraid of taking risk and setting up a practice of your own where you have control of your destiny. If you can't do it, I highly recommend you to associate with a senior doctor for a while. Evaluate all the facts. You don't need to take a big loan. You just need to do it strategically and step by step, baby steps. And don't make somebody else's dream come true. Make your own dream come true. That's what my advice would be to my colleagues.
Love it, man. This is awesome. Dr. Kianor Shah, thank you so much for joining us. The next time I see you, I will have my ping pong paddle with me. Not to toot my own horn, I've lost only twice in the last 13 years. So I feel like you may be a good match. So let's make that happen. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. I'll start practicing. I'm going to give you your money's worth, though. I used to play in the German league.
Thanks again for listening to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress Free Dentist.